November 1809. Europe was a continent caught in the teeth of war, a map of divided loyalties, untrustworthy treaties, and roads that led nowhere safely. Empires had begun to rot from within their uniforms. Even the messengers of peace were being swallowed by shadows. Benjamin Bathurst, a young British diplomat of promise, traveled through Prussia under a false name, Baron de Kock. His orders were simple: persuade Austria to rejoin the fight against Napoleon. But what history remembers is not the mission, it's the silence that followed it. A narrow, frost-bitten road winds through bare trees. Carriage wheels bite into mud. Bathurst sits inside, draped in a heavy cloak, the dim light from his carriage lamp flickering across his tired face. Opposite him sits his valet, Fisher, a pale, loyal man with wary eyes. Bathurst: "We should reach Perleberg before nightfall. They'll have a room ready, I hope." Fisher: "Aye, sir, if the French haven't requisitioned it first." Bathurst: "Then we'll share quarters with ghosts instead. They're quieter company. The wind howls, the carriage shudders. In the distance, a faint toll of a church bell, cold, hollow, eternal. In those days, the roads of Prussia were as thin as veins on the skin of a dying man. To travel them was to feel every heartbeat of a continent in ruin. Perleberg appears out of fog, a town asleep under damp roofs and candle smoke. Few lights remain burning. The carriage stops before the white swan in its sign creaks, half torn by wind. Bathurst steps down, clutching his hat. A faint drizzle begins. The innkeeper, Frau Schmidt. Frau Schmidt: "We weren't expecting visitors this late." Bathurst: "My apologies, madam, Baron de Kock and my valet. We require lodging for the night." She squints. The accent is foreign, the tone educated but brittle. She nods, but uneasily. Frau Schmidt: "Of course, Baron. The stable boy will see to your horses. Supper's cold, but honest." Bathurst: "Cold honesty suits me fine tonight." He had no reason to suspect anything. Not yet. But the kind of silence that greets strangers in Old Town's ISNT, born of politeness, its fear rehearsed too many times. The fire burns low. Bathurst writes, by candlelight, his journal open. The words are careful, diplomatic, emotionless. Reached Perleberg safely. Will continue at dawn. Rumors of French movements unverified. Fisher snores quietly near the fire. Outside, faint hoofbeats echo and stop abruptly. Bathurst pauses, listening. Bathurst? Fisher: "Did you hear that?" Fisher: "Just the wind, sir." Bathurst: "No. The wind doesn't stop like that." He gets up, peeks through the window. Nothing but fog, curling thick over the courtyard. Every town has two faces, one shown to travelers, the other reflected only in the eyes of those who never leave. Bathurst, cloaked, steps outside holding a lantern. His breath clouds the air. The horses snort uneasily. He notices faint footprints circling the carriage, then stopping, then vanishing. He kneels. The prints aren't from boots, they're bare feet. A gust snuffs the lantern. Darkness folds around him. A whisper, not close, not far. "You're not the first." Bathurst jerks up. The lantern reignites from its own dying ember. No one there. He hurries back inside. The bed is coarse but clean. Bathurst sits on the edge, staring at his boots. Fisher is fast asleep. From his pocket, Bathurst takes out a sealed envelope, his diplomatic papers. He runs his thumb along the edge, hesitates, then hides them under the floorboard plank. History paints him as rational, composed. But the men who vanish seldom leave without a sign they expected it. Fog fills the room. The bed dissolves. Bathurst stands in an endless plain of gray. A figure walks toward him, wearing his own coat. When it lifts its head, it has no face. You'll never reach London. Bathurst wakes abruptly, gasping, drenched in sweat. The candle is still burning low. A single drop of wax trails toward the floor, as if marking time. Bathurst walks to the corridor, boots quiet on wood. The inn is still. He opens a door slightly ajar. The kitchen. Inside, the innkeeper and a man in uniform whisper. He catches one word, Napoleon. They both freeze as he appears. Bathurst, am I interrupting? Frau Schmidt, no, Baron, we were just speaking of supplies. Bathurst, at 4 a.m. Your supplies must be urgent. The soldier bows stiffly and leaves through the back. Bathurst's eyes narrow. Suspicion blooms. The fog has thickened. Fisher prepares the carriage. Bathurst stands at the threshold of the inn, his coat buttoned tight. Bathurst, we'll stop at the post station outside town. I want to send a letter. Fisher, as you wish, sir. He turns to Frau Schmidt, nods politely. Bathurst, thank you for your hospitality. She doesn't smile, only whispers. Frau Schmidt, you should leave quickly, Baron, before the sun finds you. Bathurst hesitates, confused, then steps out into the pale light. Those were the last words anyone could prove he heard. By dusk, there would be no trace of him in Prussia. Not a body, not a footprint, not a whisper that dared explain why. When history forgets, it doesn't erase. It buries. And sometimes it waits for someone to start digging again. When a man vanishes, the first thing people search for is his shadow, because shadows never lie. But in November 1809, the shadow of Benjamin Bathurst began to move faster than reason could chase. Fisher steadies the horses. Frost glitters over the ground like powdered glass. Bathurst dismounts and walks to a wooden outpost where a sleepy clerk stamps letters. He hands the clerk a sealed envelope. Bathurst, deliver this to the British consulate in Hamburg. Immediate dispatch. The clerk eyes the seal. Unusual, intricate. Clerk of course, barren, though the roads have been dangerous lately. Bathurst. Danger doesn't stop diplomacy. It only delays the report. He pays in silver coins. The clerk hesitates, then nods. As Bathurst turns back toward the carriage, his shadow falls long over the frozen earth, and briefly, impossibly, there seem to be two shadows beside him. The human eye trusts the morning sun, but the morning sun is a liar. The carriage rattles through dense woodland. Frost drips from branches. Fisher hums to himself nervously. Bathurst stares out, thoughtful, eyes tired from sleeplessness. Fisher, you look uneasy, sir. Bathurst, there was a man in the inn last night. Prussian uniform, no insignia, said nothing, watched everything. Fisher, you think they know who you really are. Bathurst, I'm certain of it, and if they don't, they soon will. He glances behind. The fog seems to roll after them, not from the ground, but as if following. When fear begins to take shape, the mind invents patterns, faces in fog, footsteps behind wheels. But sometimes it's not invention at all. The carriage halts before a barricade. Soldiers inspect papers. The officer, Lieutenant Schreiber, approaches. Schreiber, travel papers, please. Bathurst hands them over with calm politeness. Schreiber, Baron de Koch, en route to Hamburg. Diplomatic errands. Bathurst, trade matters. Wool tariffs. Schreiber studies him too long. Schreiber, strange time for trade, isn't it? Everyone else trades in blood these days. Bathurst holds his gaze firm, unreadable. Bathurst, even in war, someone must carry ink instead of bullets. Schreiber smirks, returns the papers. Schreiber, carry carefully. Baron ink spills easy. Bathurst nods, drives on. The lieutenant's name would later appear in no official report, not once. A storm brews. Fisher struggles with the horses. Bathurst leans out, voice raised. Bathurst, there's a milestone ahead. We'll rest there until the rain passes. They pull under a dead oak. Rain lashes down, metallic. Bathurst steps out, soaked instantly. Lightning flickers, and there, not far, a man-shaped silhouette stands among the trees. Bathurst, who goes there? No answer. He approaches slowly, boots sinking into mud. The figure doesn't move. Lightning again, and the figure's gone. Only a coat hangs from a branch. Bathurst lifts it. It's his own coat. Identical. Same stitching. Same initials inside the collar. He drops it. From this point onward, witnesses disagree on almost every detail, except one. They all recall Bathurst's growing conviction that the world around him had folded. They find shelter in a dim, in candlelight glows through amber glass. Fisher eats quietly. Bathurst stares into the fire. Fisher, sir, you haven't touched your supper. Bathurst, do you believe a man can exist in two places at once? Fisher, you mean dreams and waking? Bathurst, no, flesh and bone. two versions, walking the same road. Fisher shifts, uneasy. Fisher, if you're asking me, sir, I think travel wears the mind thin. You've not rested in weeks. Bathurst, perhaps, or perhaps I've be. Thunder fades. Fisher sleeps. Bathurst sits at the small desk, writing by flickering candlelight. Bathurst's letter as he writes, if this reaches London, let them know something moves behind our diplomacy, something unrecorded. My name may not survive the next border, but it will be remembered by the thing that follows me. He pauses, ink drips. The candle bends unnaturally, flame drawn toward the window. He looks up through the fogged glass. He sees a figure standing outside, motionless. Fear does not come with noise. It comes when the night stops breathing. Bathurst moves to the door, opens it. Nothing outside, only footprints, bare, human, leading away. He follows them until they end abruptly, and there, where the last footprint lies, is a single page from his own diplomatic journal, torn clean, smeared with rain, a page he never removed. At dawn, Bathurst entrusts his letter to a passing courier. Fisher watches him, uncertain. Fisher, you're sending it again. Another letter. Bathurst, this one's for London, not Hamburg, and not through official channels. Fisher, they'll question that, sir. Bathurst, good. Questions are safer than silence. He pays the courier heavily. The courier rides off. That letter never reached its mark. No record, no interception, no proof it existed. Only Bathurst's handwriting, found later in the margins of another man's book. The sky bleeds into twilight. Bathurst looks pale, ill. Fisher drives. The road winds endlessly between pines. Bathurst, do you hear that? Fisher, hear what, sir? Bathurst, the carriage behind us. They both glance. Nothing. Empty road. But as the horses trot faster, the sound persists. Wheels echoing behind them, perfectly synchronized, though unseen. Two carriages, one seen, one unseen. Each turn of the wheel repeating the other's rhythm. Some say he had begun hallucinating. Others say he'd already crossed a border no map could show. They camp by a small river. Fog curls over black water. Bathurst stares at his reflection. It's delayed, slightly out of sync. He dips a finger into the water. Ripples distort the reflection's eyes first. Bathurst softly, why me? The reflection's mouth moves, but no sound. Then the river whispers back in his own voice, reversed, unintelligible. He stumbles back, heart racing. The diplomat who once negotiated treaties with kings was now bargaining with his own sanity. Bathurst looks disheveled. Fisher drives silently, glancing nervously at his master through the mirror. Fisher, sir, we can stop at Wittenberg for rest. You need sleep. Bathurst, sleep. Laughs weakly. Do you know what happens when I sleep? Fisher, I wake up one road behind where I was, as if someone moves me backward. Fisher, That's impossible. Bathurst, so is disappearing. Yet someone will soon do it. He turns toward the window. The road winds endlessly forward. In less than 24 hours, Benjamin Bathurst would step out of sight and remain a question in history books for centuries to come. Some disappearances begin with a sound, a scream, a door closing. Bathurst's began with something quieter, a decision to walk a few steps ahead. Gray clouds roll low over the fields. The carriage moves sluggishly through mud. Bathurst sits silently beside Fisher, his eyes scanning the mist as though expecting it to answer. The horses halt suddenly, startled. Fisher, what now? Ahead, the road forks. Both paths look identical, one leading north, one veering east toward the woods. Bathurst steps out. Bathurst, strange. This fork wasn't marked on the map. Fisher, which way, sir? Bathurst hesitates. The east road seems darker, but oddly inviting, as though the fog were thinning only there. Bathurst, east. Let's try east. The wheels creak as they turn into the fog. Every wrong turn is made twice, once by the man and again by his ghost. The road narrows into a corridor of trees. Branches claw at the carriage roof. Light fades unnaturally fast. Bathurst watches the fog part, revealing fleeting shapes, a figure walking parallel to the carriage, visible between trunks, matching their pace. Bathurst, Fisher, do you see that? Fisher, see what, sir? Bathurst opens the door and steps down before Fisher can stop him. The figure vanishes. Bathurst, it was me. The horses grow restless. Bathurst walks ahead, coat whipping in wind. He stops by an old milestone carved with faint letters. Pearlberg to Miles. He frowns. Bathurst, that's impossible. We left Pearlberg yesterday. He circles the stone. Behind it, carved crudely, newer letters read, "You never left." He stumbles back. The air grows colder. Somewhere, a map was folding in on itself, erasing his journey, mile by mile. Bathurst rushes back, but the carriage looks different. The wheels are caked with dry mud, not fresh. Fisher isn't there. The horses stand still, unbreathing, eyes glazed. Bathurst steps closer. Their bodies are frozen, like wax figures. He touches one. Its mane turns to ash under his hand. Bathurst, Fisher, echoes, but from every direction at once. The forest had taken his sound, turned it back toward him, rearranged. Then, from behind the trees, Fisher's voice. Fisher, oh, sir, come quick. Bathurst turns, runs toward the sound, but each step sinks deeper, like the ground itself resists him. He emerges from the woods onto a clearing. Fisher stands there, pale, trembling. Fisher, sir, I thought I lost you. He stops, mid-sentence, eyes wide. Bathurst, what is it? Fisher stares in horror. Fisher, you just walked past me a moment ago. You didn't speak. You went that way. He points down the road. Bathurst, that's impossible. Fisher, I swear, sir, you even looked at me. Same coat, same hat. Bathurst grips his arms, voice breaking. Bathurst, then tell me, Fisher, which of us are you speaking to now? Fisher, I don't know. History cannot explain what happened next. Only that two witnesses, one real, one imagined, began to contradict each other. They find refuge in a half-ruined barn. The storm grows louder. Fisher lights a lantern. Bathurst sits apart, shaking, staring into the dark corner. Fisher, you're cold, sir. Here, he hands him a blanket. Bathurst doesn't move. Bathurst, Fisher, if I vanish, if you ever see me again, don't follow. Fisher, don't talk like that. You're just tired, Bathurst. Tired men don't watch themselves walk by. Lightning flashes for an instant. A shadow stands behind Bathurst, mimicking his posture exactly. Darkness. He wasn't mad. Not then. There was something about the air that night. Like every sound had a twin just half a second late. Rain has ceased. The fog hangs motionless, thick as wool. Bathurst and Fisher approach the Inn of the White Swan once more. The same inn they left days ago. Fisher, how are we here again? Bathurst, maybe we never left. Frau Schmidt stands outside, lantern in hand, as though waiting for them. Frau Schmidt, you came back. Bathurst, I didn't mean to. Frau Schmidt, no one ever does. Bathurst walks alone behind the inn, where a narrow lane leads to an old stable. He turns to Fisher. Bathurst, wait here. I'll inspect the horses. He steps around the corner. Seconds pass. Minutes. Fisher frowns. Calls out. No answer. He walks to the stable. The door swings open. Empty. Bathurst's hat lies on the ground. The muddy footprints leading to the door simply stop. Mid-stride, Fisher, sir. Only the echo returns, slightly delayed, and then nothing. The world simply forgot to return him. Fisher and the innkeeper search frantically. Soldiers join them. They find the carriage still waiting. His papers untouched. His cloak hanging neatly on a peg. But no Bathurst. They searched for weeks. The forests, the rivers, the roads. Some said he was taken by spies. Others whispered of madness. But the innkeeper swore. She still heard footsteps at dawn, circling the stable, barefoot, deliberate, never stopping. In the centuries that followed, theories multiplied like mirrors. Assassination, abduction, alternate dimension. But the truth remains the same. Somewhere on that frozen Prussian road, Benjamin Bathurst simply walked ahead and never arrived. Rain lashed against the windows of the Carstairs estate, a sprawling Georgian manor on the outskirts of London. Inside, a constable's lantern cast trembling light across the wood-paneled study where Dr. Edmund Carstairs had been found, throat slit, spectacles broken beside him, and a half-finished letter on his desk. Inspector Alastair Wren stood silently, his coat dripping onto the marble floor. He had seen death before, but there was something about this one that gnawed at him. The wound was precise, surgical, yet the room bore signs of chaos. Books scattered, drawers pulled open, ink spilled like blood across the floor. "Was the window open when you found him?" Wren asked the maid, who trembled as she spoke. "No, sir. Locked tight. The door was the only way in or out." Wren nodded. A locked room murder, his least favorite kind. He examined the desk. The letter was addressed to E.H., the same initials carved faintly into the underside of the wooden chair. Wren slid the page toward the lantern's light and read the final line aloud. "If I am right, the killer walks in daylight with my own name." The inspector's eyes narrowed. There had been another death 3 months earlier, a young surgeon in Edinburgh, found with identical wounds. The same handwriting appeared in the coroner's notes. The maid whimpered, again, clutching her apron. "Sir, before he died, the doctor was speaking to someone. I heard voices, 2 men arguing, then silence." Wren straightened, turning toward the mantelpiece. There, beneath a portrait of Carstairs' ancestors, was a faint smudge of soot in the shape of a handprint, long, narrow fingers, like those of a pianist or a surgeon. He traced it lightly and found beneath the grime ash mixed with red wax, a seal broken recently. He held it to the light, revealing the impression of a raven in flight, wings spread wide, talons sharp. Wren's heart skipped. The same seal had appeared in 3 unsolved murders dating back to 1809, each linked to a secret society rumored to have operated under the guise of London's medical academies, the Order of the Raven. And now, it seemed, the ravens had returned. He turned toward the doorway. "Send word to Scotland Yard. Tell them to reopen the Edinburgh file." The maid blinked. "Is that where this all began, sir?" Wren's eyes darkened. "No," he said quietly. "That's where it was buried." Fog hung thick over Edinburgh's old town, coiling around the narrow winds like living smoke. The clatter of carriage wheels echoed far below as Inspector Alastair Wren climbed the steps of the Royal College of Surgeons, his boots heavy with London mud. He paused beneath the iron archway, its inscription faded, the stone beneath it scarred by soot, a relic of a time when science walked hand in hand with superstition. Inside, the hallways smelled of iodine and dust. Portraits of surgeons stared from the walls, their painted eyes cold and watchful. Inspector Wren, a frail voice called. Dr. Hargreaves emerged from a side corridor, elderly, stooped, and clutching a cane carved in the likeness of a raven's claw. His spectacles glinted in the dim light. "You're here about Carstairs," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. "Yes," Wren replied. "And about the others. All of them had your college's name whispered in their autopsies. The old doctor sighed. "You've come looking for the order, then." Wren didn't answer. Hargreaves motioned for him to follow. "We called ourselves men of progress, but what we sought to uncover was never meant for daylight." They descended into the disused anatomy theater, a circular chamber beneath the college, lit only by oil lamps. The scent of formalin lingered in the air. In the center, a wooden table stood beneath a cracked skylight, its surface scarred with decades of incisions. "This is where it began," Hargreaves said, "and where it should have ended." He opened a drawer in the table's base and withdrew a folder wrapped in wax paper. Inside were sketches, human bodies, dissected and annotated in obsessive detail. But one drawing caught Wren's attention. A double heart, two conjoined organs, each labeled with a name. Experiment 47 Subject, Edmund Carstairs. Subject B, Elias Harrow. Wren froze. E.H., the initials from the murdered man's letter. "Who was Elias Harrow?" he asked. Hargreaves hesitated. "Carstairs' assistant. Dismissed for unethical conduct. Brilliant, but reckless. He believed the heart was the seat of memory. Tried to transplant it to carry consciousness from one man to another. Did he succeed?" The doctor's silence was answer enough. Wren examined the sketches again. At the bottom, written in Carstairs' hand, were the words, "He wakes in the body that once betrayed him." A sound echoed from the shadows above the creak of a balcony door. Wren looked up and for a fleeting second saw a man standing in the upper gallery, tall, wearing a dark coat and gloves. The faint gleam of surgical instruments caught the light as he stepped back into the fog. Wren drew his revolver and rushed upstairs, but the door swung open to an alley beyond, already empty except for the echo of retreating footsteps. Hargreaves called out behind him, voice trembling, "Inspector, if Harrow lives, then Carstairs may not be the only one who died by his own hand." Wren stopped, his breath visible in the cold air. Somewhere in the distance, a raven cried, and the fog seemed to whisper back. By dusk, the storm had rolled in from the firth, turning Edinburgh's sky into a cauldron of lead and lightning. Inspector Wren pulled his collar tight as he crossed Greyfriars Close, the rain drumming like bones on slate. In his pocket lay the last note found among Carstairs' things, a half-burned scrap of paper bearing the address St. Alcuin's Dispensary. The place had been shut for nearly a decade after reports of anatomical irregularities. No one dared to reopen it. The old chapel that once crowned the street stood hollowed, its windows boarded, its bell long fallen. But below, beneath the crumbling stones, a faint yellow light flickered, the unmistakable glow of life in a place meant for the dead. Wren pushed open the rusted gate and descended the narrow stairwell. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic and damp earth. He could hear the faint hum of machinery, unnatural, electric, modern. Inside the dispensary was a tomb of forgotten medicine. Surgical lamps hung crooked from the ceiling. Cabinets overflowed with labeled jars, preserved organs, failed grafts, relics of a time when the human body was an experiment waiting to happen. And in the center, beneath a flickering light, stood a covered operating table. A figure moved behind it, tall, composed, surgical apron tied neat and tight. His voice, when it came, was calm as a prayer. "Inspector Wren, you found me sooner than I expected." Wren's revolver lifted. Elias Harrow. The man turned slowly, revealing a face both familiar and wrong. It was Carstairs' face, but subtly altered, the jawline sharper, the eyes colder, the skin marked with faint surgical scars that followed the shape of veins beneath. "Not Harrow anymore," the figure said softly. "Not entirely." Wren's breath caught. "You used Carstairs' body." Harrow smiled faintly. "He offered it to me. He believed the heart could carry memory. I proved it carries more: will, vengeance, the persistence of self." He lifted the cloth from the table. Beneath it lay another body, unfinished, stitched along the chest, its face hidden by gauze. Wren stepped closer and saw the initials on the wristband. A.W. His own. He staggered back. "What is this?" "A successor," Harrow murmured. "You're nearing your end, Inspector. You've been coughing blood for months. London's air has poisoned you. I've read your medical reports. You can't live long, but you could live again." The hum of machines grew louder. Wren realized the wires ran directly to the slab electrodes, not of modern make, but crafted from brass and bone. "You think you can turn men into ghosts inside new bodies," Wren said. Harrow stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the floor. "No, I turn them into echoes that never fade." Before Wren could fire, the lights went out. The sound of footsteps darted through the dark, quick, deliberate, clinical. He fired once. The muzzle flash illuminated the room for a heartbeat, revealing dozens of jars on the walls, each filled with floating eyes, watching, then silence. A match flared behind him. Harrow's voice came almost tender. "You fear death, Inspector, but death fears me." But the flame had vanished, and only the echo of a closing door remained. The inspector stood alone beneath the dying lamps, surrounded by the remnants of a man who had refused to die. And somewhere above ground, the chapel bell began to ring, even though it had no clapper. The storm had passed, but the city of Edinburgh seemed changed, quieter, as if holding its breath. Inspector Wren walked through the graveyard of St. Cuthbert's with a lantern in one hand and the raven seal clutched in the other. The wax had grown brittle, but the sigil still gleamed red under the moonlight. He'd spent hours combing through Carstairs and Harrow's old correspondences, tracing names, symbols, and dates until they converged upon a single clue. When the blood forgets its vessel, the heart shall return to its origin. That origin, he now knew, was here beneath the crypts of St. Cuthbert's, where the first members of the Raven Society had been buried over half a century ago. The caretaker, an old man with shaking hands, tried to dissuade him. "No one goes down there after midnight, sir. The tunnels twist. They remember who walks them." Wren only nodded and pressed forward. The crypt door groaned open. The air below was still and ancient, smelling of dust and candle grease. The walls were lined with stone niches, some empty, some sealed with cracked tablets bearing the Raven insignia. As he moved deeper, his lantern light revealed writing scrawled across the walls, notes, equations, fragments of anatomy studies. And in the center of the chamber stood a table made of marble, its surface engraved with a double heart symbol, one side carved smooth, the other half left rough and unfinished. On the table rested a large glass jar. Inside floated what could only be described as a heart, blackened but still faintly pulsating. Wren froze. The hum he had heard in Harrow's clinic returned here, deep and rhythmic, like something alive, but buried in stone. He stepped closer. On the pedestal beneath the jar was an inscription, Experiment 1, Transference Complete, a Ravenscroft. The name struck him cold. Augustus Ravenscroft, the founder of the society, a surgeon, philosopher, and visionary, once declared insane for claiming that the soul could be mapped like an organ. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind him. Wren spun around, revolver raised, and there, at the entrance of the crypt, stood Harrow. His coat was torn, his gloves smeared with blood, but his face, the face of Carstairs, was beginning to collapse, the stitches along his jaw seeping crimson. "You shouldn't have come," Harrow rasped. "He doesn't like to be disturbed," Wren demanded. Harrow gestured toward the pulsing heart in the jar. "Ravenscroft, the first transference. He lives in there, or rather, through all of us who bear his mark." Lightning flashed somewhere above, and for a moment, Wren saw shadows along the walls, vague human shapes that seemed to breathe with the same rhythm as the heart. "Every member of the society gave him a piece," Harrow whispered. "A lobe, a vein, a memory. That's why we can't die. He won't let us." Wren stepped forward, revolver steady. "Then I'll finish what Carstairs started." He fired. The bullet shattered the jar, and the heart burst free, hitting the floor with a sickening thud. Black blood spilled across the stone like ink. Harrow screamed, clutching his chest as his body convulsed. The heart began to beat faster, louder, its rhythm echoing through the tunnels until the entire crypt seemed to pulse with it. The lantern flickered violently, and then everything went dark. when the flame steadied again, Harrow was gone. Only the sound of distant footsteps echoed upward toward the world above. And on the marble table, where the heart had lain, was a fresh carving, one that hadn't been there before. He remembers who tried to forget. The next morning brought a pale, uneasy dawn. The storm had cleared, but Inspector Alastair Wren felt as though it had left something behind, an echo that clung to the air, humming faintly in the back of his skull. He awoke not in his rented room at the inn, but in the Royal Infirmary, a nurse hovering by the bedside. His coat and revolver were gone. His hands trembled violently, though he couldn't remember why. "Easy now, sir," the nurse said gently. "You were found unconscious in St. Cuthbert's Yard. You've been asleep near a day." Wren blinked against the light. His voice came hoarse. "Was anyone else found with me?" The nurse shook her head. "Just you, and a strange pattern drawn in the soil beside you, like a double heart." He tried to sit up, but dizziness overtook him, a rush of images not his own. Carstairs in his study, Harrow's scalpel flashing in the dark, a surgeon's laughter from decades past, memories that weren't his. When the nurse turned to fetch water, Wren caught his reflection in the small mirror above the sink. For an instant, just an instant, he didn't see himself. The eyes staring back were colder, calculating. Harrow's. He slammed the mirror aside, shattering it. The door burst open as Dr. Hargreaves entered, pale and breathless. "Wren, thank God you're awake. They've found another body." Wren steadied his breathing. "Who?" "Your nurse, the one who attended you last night, found in the alley outside the infirmary, her chest carved open." Wren froze. "By what?" Hargreaves swallowed. "By someone who knew exactly where the heart lies." The words lingered like frost in the air. As Wren dressed and followed Hargreaves through the narrow stone corridors, he noticed something else, a faint bloodstain beneath his own fingernails. He stopped walking. "Doctor, what if it wasn't Harrow who killed her?" Hargreaves turned, confused. "What are you saying?" Wren looked down at his trembling hands, as if they no longer belonged to him. What if he didn't escape the crypt? The older man's face went pale. I mean, Wren whispered. What if Harrow didn't die, but moved? They reached the body in the morgue, a young nurse, pale, her chest marked with the same sigil Wren had seen in Carstairs' study, the raven in flight. But on the sheet beside her lay something else's surgical tag bearing the name Wren. The inspector stared at it, throat tightening. "I didn't bring that," said Hargreaves, backing away. Wren's heartbeat thundered. The hum in his skull grew louder, deeper, like the pulse of that black heart in the crypt. He clutched the edge of the table and whispered through clenched teeth, "He's in me." The lamps flickered. Then, without warning, Wren's own voice began to shift, layering over itself in echoes, another tone surfacing beneath it. "You came too close, Inspector," the second voice said. "Now you will remember everything." The morgue lights burst, plunging the room into darkness. And in that darkness, the faint rustle of feathers filled the air. The world had changed, or maybe Wren had. He stumbled through the mist-cloaked streets of Edinburgh, every face he passed seeming both familiar and strange. The gaslights flickered in rhythm with his pulse. Somewhere between each heartbeat, another voice breathed behind his thoughts, patient, deliberate, surgical. "Don't fight it, Inspector. You opened the door. You shattered the jar. Now the heart remembers through you." Harrow's voice, but quieter this time, like a memory trying to speak from inside his bones. Wren pressed his hands to his temples, trying to block it out. The raven sigil seemed to shimmer in his vision, no matter where he looked, in window reflections, puddles, even the fog itself. He staggered toward the old printing district, where Carstairs' letters had once been sent from. Perhaps there he could still find a trace of the truth before his own mind betrayed him completely. Inside the abandoned press room, the smell of ink and rust filled the air. Piles of discarded broadsheets littered the floor, yellowed with time. Wren's lantern swept across them until one headline caught his eye. "Noted surgeon found dead. The Order of the Raven dissolved." Dated August 14th, 1809. But the ink was still fresh. He lifted the paper, hands shaking. On the back, scrawled in neat handwriting, was a message. "You're reading this for the first time. I'm writing it for the last. E. Harrow." His lantern flickered. The machinery of the printing press began to turn on its own. Gears grinding, rollers squealing as if summoned by unseen hands. Sheets began to feed through, blank at first, then printed with words that formed before his eyes. When Ravenscroft failed, he split the heart in two, one half flesh, one half mind. Each generation, it seeks to reunite itself. You, Inspector, are the vessel it chose. Wren backed away, revolver trembling in his hand. "Show yourself," he shouted. The press stopped. The silence that followed was deep enough to hear the heartbeat of the city and his own, perfectly in sync. Then, from the shadows behind the press, a figure stepped forward. Not Harrow, not Carstairs. A man older, impossibly old, his face stretched thin like parchment, his eyes black pools reflecting the lantern light. "Ravenscroft," Wren breathed. The man smiled faintly. "Names change, Inspector. Vessels change, but memory endures." Wren raised the revolver. "You're a ghost trapped in tissue and blood." Ravenscroft tilted his head. "And you're a man who thinks he's still alive." The lantern flame flared, and in its glow, Wren saw the impossible, faces upon faces flickering across Ravenscroft's skin. Harrow, Carstairs, dozens of others, all merging, collapsing, breathing through one body. Then Wren felt it, a sharp pain in his chest. He tore open his shirt, and there it was, the faint outline of stitches running down his sternum. He froze. "No, you've already been opened," said Ravenscroft. "The transference began the moment you shattered the heart. What you call memory is me." The revolver slipped from Wren's grip. He stumbled back, clutching his chest as his heartbeat merged with the pulse of the entire building. Every flickering light, every creaking gear. Ravenscroft's voice echoed like a sermon. "You can't kill what you've already become." Wren collapsed to his knees. His breath came ragged, his vision fracturing into shards of memory. Harrow's first operation, Carstairs' letter, the heart under glass, the raven's wings beating against eternity. He screamed. When the echo faded, the press room was silent again. The lantern burned out, and when dawn came, the only thing left on the press table was a single, freshly printed sheet. Inspector Alastair Wren declared dead. August 14th, 1809. London, 6 months later. Fog rolled over the Thames like a living tide, swallowing bridges and gas lamps in its slow, silken drift. The newspapers spoke of strange disappearances in the city's medical quarters, surgeons vanishing, mortuaries found empty, heart donors missing from their records. In an office at Scotland Yard, a young detective placed a file on the chief inspector's desk. The name on it had long been marked closed. Case No. 1412. Inspector Alastair Wren, deceased. The detective frowned. "Sir, someone's been adding to this file." Recently, the chief didn't look up. "Old ghosts don't need paperwork, son." "But, sir, this came in from Edinburgh this morning." He handed over a single envelope, sealed with red wax, the same sigil that once haunted Wren's every waking hour, the raven in flight. The chief broke it open, expecting a prank, but inside was a letter written in a familiar, measured hand. Asterisk, "The body forgets what the mind cannot." The experiment succeeded. I am both patient and surgeon now, both witness and wound. The heart remembers. Asterisk, AW. The chief's face went pale. "That can't be possible. Should I trace it?" asked the young detective. He hesitated, then shook his head. "No, burn it." But that night, long after the lamps dimmed, curiosity won. The young man returned to the evidence locker, searching through the remaining boxes. There, among the older files, was a photograph taken years before the Great War, a group portrait of surgeons outside a small Edinburgh clinic. At the far left, almost hidden in shadow, stood a man in a dark coat. His face was thin, eyes intense, familiar but wrong. The name scrawled beneath read, Dr. Alastair Wren, FRCS, stamped with the year 1913. The detective froze. That would make the man over 100 years old. He flipped the photo over, heart pounding, and saw a handwritten note in the same crisp penmanship. The order endures. The heart does not die, it remembers. Epilogue. A flicker of lamplight illuminated a narrow London alley. Beneath the soft hiss of rain, a figure passed, coat collar up, gloves immaculate. He carried a black doctor's bag that clicked faintly with each step. He paused beneath a street sign marked Ravenscroft Lane. When the lightning flashed, his face was visible for a moment, calm, cold, timeless. His eyes reflected both weariness and wonder, as if he had lived 100 lives and forgotten none. He reached the end of the lane, entered a narrow doorway, and disappeared into the dark. From inside, a heartbeat began, slow, deliberate, mechanical, accompanied by the faint flutter of wings. The heart remembers.